you. Like this is just me getting a free podcast out of this. But
Yes.
so
We
do you dance?
Hey, I'll stop and we'll just send you this portion and you can
Yeah.
post it on Spotify on
So
yours if
do
you
you
want to.
dance or do because you're a pretty good example to I mean a pretty good case study.
That's why I would then want to talk to you because I feel like I am the prime example of everything you've been talking about. Go ahead.
Yes. So do you dance to a rhythm? If I said to you, what rhythm do you dance country swing? Do you dance to it? And I won't judge any answer.
It's one, two, three, four.
Just walking, like just every step.
Yep. Yep. So they taught it
Okay.
at Arthur Murray's where I went. And the first dance they teach you there is club swing. Have you heard of club swing?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. So they just teach one, two, three, four. You just rock back and rock forward is the first step that they teach anybody and everybody there. And then they teach you that country swing is just basically that, but variation. So I just start out with rock step and then, walk, walk. Yeah, be walk, walk, rock step.
Yeah. So do you know, like if you've listened to the podcast, that's exactly what I used to teach at a Go Dance for like 6 months, and
Yep.
now we still teach a Go Dance. You start in compression, you rock away, you rock forward, and the leader opens his leg a bit so the follower can kind of rock in between,
Yep.
step in between your legs.
Yep.
And I love it. It feels great. And you do rock, step, leader might go, rock, step, follower might go, like on the 3/4.
Yes.
So, I mean, yeah, I think that's great. And then it's a very simple dance to keep in time with. You know, you can do tricks, come straight out, and I'm guessing you go on your left foot, the follower goes on their right foot.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. So here's what happened with me. So I have been just dancing, line dancing, and then Texas two-step in a bar and country swing. I don't know that it's any of that because when you're dancing with people who are teaching you, they're just like, hey, two steps to your left and one step to your right, and hey, spin me here, spin me there. Here's a move I've known. And then TikTok happens, and then you see some of these other people in other parts of the country, and you see these like cool moves that they're doing. You're like, oh, this is fun. We're gonna practice this. And then I see West Coast, and this is when West Coast is like blowing up online, and I'm just sitting there thinking to myself, this looks cool as all get out. So and it looks similar. Like I can see it's swing, so we're doing country swing at this point. I had heard about it. Um, I'm gonna go and I want to learn this, but nobody at Honky Tonk teaches this, so I'm gonna go to a ballroom studio. So I go, I take a lesson on West Coast, and she's sitting there, and she's like, "All right, West Coast, you're gonna go one, two, three, and four, five, and six," and I'm like, "Do what?" I'm like, she's like, "We're gonna step on the beat, one, one, two," and I'm like, what do you mean stepping to the beat?
Yeah, yeah, that's funny.
Like, and she's like, well, you're gonna have to move your feet on beat to the music. And I was like, oh, okay, hold on, whoa, whoa, whoa. I have to move my feet on beat to the music while learning this dance and think about what move I want to do. And I actually had to lead this woman of where I want her to go all at the same time. And she's like, yeah. Oh no, this is not West Coast is this is not what I thought. It's not what I looked
Yeah.
for. So she's like, well, why don't we just do salsa and bachata so that way you can, just mix it up a little bit and maybe go to the Latin clubs in Charleston every now and again. And I was like, okay, sounds fun. And we eventually got back to West Coast, but you have to learn. And as time goes on, probably been a long time since you were a beginner at dance. But the hardest part for me was that first year of learning how to dance on beat and learning how to listen to music. And then you think it's the coolest thing of all time because you feel like you go to
Yeah.
super and you're like, oh, I know how to
Yeah.
dance on beat. All my friends are gonna want to know about this. And you go back to the bars and you're like, hey, guys, we need to like stay on beat to the music. And it's one step per beat of music, and they're like, okay.
Yeah.
They just like don't care. And then I just feel like I'm like going insane because I'm just like, okay. At the time, that's what Emily and I first connected on was dance because she's been dancing to ballet, and then in South Florida they line danced at they had family nights. So she's been doing it since she was 8. And that's what we connected was just talking about dance all the time because she was the first person that I could just like relay all this information out, and we would stay up till 2 a.m. and we just would talk dance all night long, and it was just the coolest thing in the world. And that's what I've struggled with some of these events and everything is, people are winning these buckles and doing these events and everything. And I've had two people talk shit to me because I have a social media following. They're like, "Oh, you don't want to compete, but you're too scared." Blah 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 blah. And I'm just like, okay. I'm like, you don't even know the count of, you don't even know what
Yeah.
you're dancing to. And then I got frustrated because I had a judge at one of these events tell me that, oh, we don't care what they do as long as they just, we just want to make sure they hit one. And I'm just like, okay, well, what about two, three, and four? Or as I've apparently heard on your podcast, is there this dance could go to six or I guess even eight.
Yeah, yeah. What could it be? And do you know what's so interesting? I had a question. I have a Facebook group for the podcast. There's no such thing as country swing. And it's funny, just this week it's ignited into lots of comments. And I had someone message and say, I feel like there's two questions you haven't asked very much or at all. I haven't heard you cover. One is about the lifts, which I was like, yeah, true. I haven't really, because I don't feel like we've cleared up the timing enough to go into that yet.
Yep.
And also, my other opinion is, or my other thought on that, if you're doing Lindy Hop or you're doing salsa or you're doing really the lifts don't stay in time with the thing. You just come out and go back to the timing. So the lifts don't really worry me that much, to be
Yep.
honest. But safety aspects, yes, and all of that, but it doesn't worry me about the structure of the dance. And then the second thing they said was, you haven't asked about timing and musicality. And I was like, I think I've asked every podcast is about the timing. But what they meant was, does it need to be on time to the music? And I was like, so it's funny you just say that. And I said, oh, shoot, I feel like I've done a disservice to the audience because I'm just assuming that that's dancing. Like that to me is a given. And I said on the Facebook message, if I said to you now, what do you think country swing is? And you said, well, it's just moving, not doesn't matter about the music, I would hang up because there's no real point in me like continuing the conversation at that point, which
Okay.
sounds rude, but it's
I'm just so glad you've been bringing this up just because there's two parts to this. One, what people do in bars, I could give really two shits about because
uh-huh.
what I've garnered from going to the bars, and I've traveled, I've been to Mavericks and Buda, so I've been to Austin, which is funny because I looked into getting a lesson with you, but I didn't have time.
Oh,
That was last year. Yeah, I didn't have time, but I was going to contact you. Um, but I've traveled to Texas, Florida, Georgia, Tennessee, and most people in bars, they just don't, they're just out to have a good time.
yeah,
And
which is great.
yes, and I believe I heard you say this, and that's great. We want everybody just go out there and have a blast, and just make sure people are safe. Obviously, like you said, don't.
Yeah.
And I've seen it in my bar. A girl got dropped on her head, and she's never been back, and she had a brain aneurysm and spent a month in the hospital.
Well
So
said. Yeah.
people think whenever I'm being a dick when I'm like, hey, lifts are great, just have a spotter or make sure you're doing it with somebody who truly knows what they're doing. But after that happened, I had a friend who was like,
Yeah.
I thought you were just being a dick at first, but now I see you were actually trying to look out for me.
Yeah.
I don't want you to go in the hospital. So just for me trying to talk to people, they just don't care. They just have a great time and meet people and just enjoy their life. And that is awesome. What bugged me was going to some of the events and nobody could tell me. And then the people winning buckles or trophies and stuff. And they're like, oh, I'm doing all this, great stuff and I'm winning all this events or I just finished third. And then they're coming to my bar because I know that I've done ballroom. And I had this guy, he asked me, he was like, oh, well, how did I look out there? And I was like, brother, you can't country swing to that song. It's a nightclub two-step.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And he's just like, huh?
Yeah.
And I don't even want to get into it with people now. And I don't know. I don't know. Like I don't know. I love country swing. I think it's the perfect gateway dance for anybody to get into it. Um, I don't understand what some of the people are doing, and even from some podcasts, it just has left me. Um,
Yeah. It's fascinating. Like to me, each week I kind of get more of an understanding of it, but not in a way of knowing the timing of just the problems with it. And I'm like, I feel like we can just call it country dance because it's just dancing to country music. It doesn't need to be a dance form if we're not worried about it. Whereas country swing can be its thing with dance with footwork. The fact you've just explained it to me really, really well, and your feet, your like ear is to the ground. I just, it confuses me why there is a problem with everyone not doing the same thing.
Well, what made me the happiest listening to you is when you said the basic. Like, if you are going to host a competition, and this is what we're talking about here, if you're going to have people come and compete and pay money to an event to come compete, what is the basic?
Yeah.
Like, there are variations of every dance. You can do two step of quick, quick, slow, slow, but obviously there are going to be moves where you might go quick, 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 you know. But if you were going to do a beginner division and you're going to host a competition, I should see the basic of country swing. And then the other thing that you haven't asked that hasn't been answered either is when I'm taught smooth dances, okay, now I'm dancing from heel to toe as the lead. If I'm going to do a Latin dance, I'm dancing from
Yeah.
toe to heel. Okay, well, what are we doing with country swing? Like, is this just like, are you just dragging your foot across the floor?
Yeah.
Like, are you stepping from heel to toe? Nobody's told me.
Yeah. And again, we can go around in circles. The other thing for me is like most dance forms are driven by a particular style of music. So
Yes.
like they fit to a particular style. And country swing is almost the other way round, where it's like we've created or they've created a dance and then it's kind of they want to do it to anything. And I'm like, well, no, it needs a style of music. And I've said this before, I'm repeating myself, but West Coast swing is an anomaly that it can be done to anything. Like
Yes.
most other dances can't. There's two-step specific music. There's obviously waltz specific music. There's polka specific music.
But like you said, if you go to a Latin club, you know when a merengue is coming on.
Yeah.
Just hearing that beat and you're just marching to that beat. Or when you hear a salsa or bachata, you know, oh, this is a salsa, this is a bachata. And I have never thought about what is a country swing song
Yeah.
until I listened to, I think it was the one with Juan that I listened to this
Yeah.
morning. I was like, I've never even thought about that, of
Yeah.
what type of music, because even it was explained to me with nightclub two step where that was hated at first apparently, but then they were like, well, if you take like She's Everything by Brad Paisley, it's
Yeah.
this song, you can't quite do two steps to it, so they had
Yeah.
to find something to fill that void on those slower country songs.
Yeah. Yeah.
Genius. um
Yeah,
so
like I remember when I was teaching country swing at Go Dance, and it was really just pre-COVID, and I had a spot in my schedule, and Go Dance needed a teacher. Now I'm not an employee of Go Dance, I'm independent, so it was kind of strange that, but Susan used to own it, so there's a more of a relationship there. And they said, "Hey, do you want to teach it?" And it was one step in country swing, one session after the other, and I was like, "Okay, there's a syllabus. I don't need to create it. You just learn it." And I remember like I've still got the lists on my phone going through and finding good songs that rhythm worked to. And I remember Susan saying to me, and tell the people when you're teaching them country swing that this is a great dance to do to pop music like Uptown Funk, blah blah blah.
yes.
And like for weddings, like because these people that come to the studio aren't necessarily just country bar people. They want to dance other places.
Yep.
And that's why your single time one you just told me about, that which we teach at Go Dance, works so well to like
Yes.
music as well, because it's forward to the floor, you know.
Yes.
So I just think if we're talking about a dance specifically as a gateway dance, which everyone keeps saying, just do single time. That's the easiest thing.
That's
But
what I said. And then now I want your thoughts. What about Bar Coast?
so I only know of Bar Coast because people mention it as West Coast so much. They're like, it's the bar version of West Coast. That's what
Yes.
I get told.
But then I see people trying to do sugar pushes with single timing on a Bar
Yeah.
Coast, and I don't, unless you anchor in place, you can't get any connection on that.
Yeah. To me, and I've kind of said this on the podcast, it's that thing of if you can't do a dance because the triple steps are too hard or too confusing, just don't do that dance. You
Yep.
know, like rather than bastardize it or like do a version of it, like or create a dance, you know, it's kind of I use this example over and over again. And I was talking about it today because I do a big show here in December called it's Dancing with the Stars Austin. It's a huge charity event and I choreograph all the
That looks really
numbers.
cool, by the way.
Say that again.
Watching a few of those videos, it looks really cool, by the way.
Oh
Thank
yeah,
you.
yeah. It's a super fun event. And I mean, last year for charity, it made like 2.6 million. It's like an
Wow.
incredible event. Yeah.
That's huge.
But I choreograph the routines and I choreograph them, any of the jive ones, as single time swing. Step, step, rock step, because I don't think the celebrity dancers are going to be able to do triple steps
No, no.
because it's too hard.
Yeah.
But if they come in and they can do it, great, we raise it up. But we don't just go, well, we're going to try it. You like build them up from different dances. And that's what I feel like Bar Coast, maybe it can be turned into a good dance, but I almost feel like, no, that's where country swing should come in, like a simpler dance, or one step, because in Austin, I don't know if you did it when you were here, one step is its own dance, walking around the floor. And I love it. It's a great feeder. I personally love it, even from like my level of dancer, because I don't have to think. And any moves that I know from salsa, from waltz, I can throw into one step because there's no confusion about the footwork.
Yep.
You know, so yeah, Bar Coast, I'm not super experienced with, but it confuses me a bit.
That's what has stressed me out, because I go to the ballroom studio and I've learned all this stuff, and then all of a sudden this Bar Coast thing pops up, and I'm just like, and I know, I mean, I can dance West Coast. I'm not great by any means, but I know what I'm like. I can dance it. I don't know. I have a hard time grasping it, because every time I do something that I've seen done, just because I just want to go out and do it socially with friends, my mind, I want to sit there and do, a triple step.
Yeah.
And there's no like real timing involved with it. And even people I've talked to, I'm like, well, what are we dancing to? And like none of them can tell me. And these are also people who are competing. And I don't know how you're competing in something that you don't know the timing of. So what are you dancing to when you get on that floor? What are you dancing to?
Yeah. And I would say the like another point to do with that is, if they called it country freestyle or country, even fusion, I don't like, because that suggests you're fusing. It has to be a fusion of different dances. But if it was just country dance, like if I was judging country improv, like
improv.
If I was judging that, if I was a judge for that, I wouldn't go in there with, well, this has to look like anything. But the fact is, they're saying country swing. I should look around the room and see most people doing the same thing, better, worse, or that person hasn't got a clue, they're out. But you look around and it's all different. So I think that's where the issue is. They've coined a term for it, but it's not anything.
Yeah, because to me, country swing and Bar Coast are two completely different dances.
Yes, yeah. And then you see the people doing West Coast in these competitions as well, that like, and I'm like, oh, so there's a West Coast couple, but they're still through to the finals, or
Yes. So. Who are we talking about that with? Trevor. Yes, that's what Trevor was talking to us about this weekend, because there was some sort of competition where they had a lot of experience in West Coast, but then they entered in a Bar Coaster country swing competition, and there was like a beginner, and they just swept the floor because they obviously pretty solid West Coast dancers.
Yeah.
So everybody was pissed because they're just like, this isn't West Coast. This should be, something else.
And I know exactly who you're talking about. I heard all about that.
Okay.
But that's the thing. Yeah, it's like news travels real fast in dancing. It's real fast. Especially that I'm doing this podcast. But the other thing is like, in the end, in that situation with no rules, dancing will win. Like, so if someone's a good dancer, they'll win. Which is that right? Probably not, because if they're not, but then I guess it is right, because there is no thing of country swing like that's
but that's why you have different divisions, from what I was explained, different divisions. Well, if you're going to do at Arthur Murray, they call it,